Now, if you want to consider that fucked up or not fucked up, like whatever, that's your own personal thing. But ultimately, it's like deviating from what is like his normal is all I'm trying to say. The fact that he's deviating to something that is not what his brain otherwise used to be stimulated by, and now this thing that was otherwise his normal is now no longer satisfactory and he's no longer like even turned on by it. It goes to show that he's What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be checking out this off-topic thread in the steroids subreddit called "Why the fuck is Tren turning me homosexual?" Substantiated_hatred posted this on Instagram, and you know, like obviously a thread like this is going to resurface and get attention. Here it is. So for this guy, he's on Tren. It's bringing out his weird fetishes. He's craving sucking dick 24/7, but only trannies. And it's even making him want to get fucked in the ass. He's legitimately on Tinder about to get fucked by a crossdresser. What to do? Should he go through with it or just jack off instead? Now, like, is this a troll post or is this legitimate? Like, I think you'd be surprised how fucked up the minds of guys get who are on gear. Like, first of all, I'll actually get into the science. Like, this is not a joke of a title. Like, I'm actually going to explain why this guy might be getting homosexual tendencies or just be, you know, I don't know, like craving more like exotic, not mainstream shit as a result of his exposure to certain hormones. Because this does happen, you know, like we've seen Big Lenny as one of the most outspoken, you know, sauce fiends who just doesn't give a fuck about exposing his own, you know, personal crazy fetishes and shit. And he talks about his experiences with transsexuals and whatnot all the time. And Tony Huge also, you know, seems to not give a fuck. Although it's a bit different than Lenny with, you know, the context in terms of what situations they would be, you know, like willing to do it in or whatever. But anyways, regardless, there are individuals who use these kind of like exotic hormones that end up with neurological changes and adaptations to their kind of like sexual appetites and watch more increasingly odd porn, which we're going to get into shortly. Bro, what? Top comment. You heard him. Goals by fuck_cardio. Ever heard of a guy named Big Lenny? Juicing ain't worth it, bros. Bros. You don't know Ziz? Honestly, though, this post aside, it isn't. Fit. More plates, more dates. Average Reddit moment. Anon is gay. He's turning into Big Lenny. More plates, more dates. Wow, fucking hugely upvoted. Love this guy, Derek. Please, Mr. Delph, make a video on this. Me. Like, no, dude, an efficacious dose of jacking off will get you a super physiological post-nut clarity. Too many Trenbolone sandwiches. What should he do? Weirdly, Deca has made a lot of guys into getting cucked. Another video, by the way, in the pipeline. Tren is the gay juice. Average Redditor. Juicing is worth it, but not if you get the side effect, LMAO. Drugs turn you gay? Oh wow, never heard that one before. Should have stuck with the D-ball instead. Tren moment. Tren? Oof, most heterosexual gear user. Dangerously based. Okay, anyway, you get the idea. So I actually went and dug up this thread to see if it's still alive and kicking. It was deleted by the moderators. However, all the comments are still there. TRT, Tren replacement therapy. Let's see. Are there any actual legitimate insights? Congratulations, your sexuality is on a spectrum and you are feeling hornier and less inhibited than normal. Is it making you gay? Probably not. Did you have subconscious desires previously that are bumped up to the surface? Maybe. You also could be digging way too deep in the porn web, craving more and more unique taboo fetishes because you're getting more and more desensitized by normal pornography. Maybe take a porn tea break reset. If you still want to chase trannies. Probably better to know if you were actually bi or just addicted to porn. Okay, so, you know, a lot of insight in here about, you know, what's going on and shit. Mostly people just making fun of him or saying dumb stuff. But there is actual scientific insight into this. And the comment I just read is not that... It's part of it, in my opinion. So first of all, when you take exogenous anabolic steroids and you increase your androgen profile to multiple fold higher than what you naturally produce endogenously, what is this increased androgenic signaling going to do? Well, if you've ever tried gear, you know that within your first few weeks, it feels like you just hit puberty again. Like your sex drive goes through the fucking roof. It feels like you're back in high school and you have fucking raging random hard-ons, and that's all you can think about. You'll note that as you go through puberty, everything's kind of like at its peak. And then even though you have like pretty fucking prime T levels in your early mid 20s, you start to notice your, sexual, ridiculous over the top sexual, outbursts, or I don't know what to call it, just like random fucking pent up sexual energy essentially sort of diminishes, despite the fact that on paper, your hormone levels may not be reflective of that necessarily. Now, obviously this will differ for certain individuals, and some people that get addicted to porn and weird fucked up shit, will fuck their brains and make it so they have, far more exaggerated, sexual appetites despite having slightly lower androgenic signaling. But in general, when you're adapting to a new stimulus, your brain's in like a hyper-stimulated state that it's not yet adapted to. You get like a heightened level of like, I'm super fucking horny. And it's almost reflective of or representative of what is like going through puberty again when you get on your first cycle. Does this last forever? No. A lot of you guys will note, within your first, 6 to 8 weeks of your first cycle, you get fucking through the roof horny. But every cycle down the line, did you get that same, giant burst? No, not necessarily. But again, with Tren, is it different than just using, a fat dose of test or something? Yeah, it is. And this is through its progestogenic signaling, which we'll get into shortly. So first of all, this guy is increasing his androgen profile by multiple fold higher than what he naturally produces. That in itself is going to significantly heighten his libido. Above and beyond that, there are a lot of androgen users that get addicted to porn. And when they get addicted to porn, not only does it desensitize them in real life to a point that they could have like a hot chick in their bed, and they don't even really respond that well to it because they're so used to watching like fucked up shit on, the hub or whatever. And they end up, or like more fucked up sites because maybe the hub is too mainstream for the shit they watch, who knows. It gets like some of these individuals end up going so down the rabbit hole that they need to watch like increasingly fucked up porn to get their brain stimulated to even like be able to get off. And then in real life situations, like normal sex with like hot women does not appeal to them the same, So this is an issue, to be honest, because it can lead to broken relationships. Like a lot of girls that are dating guys will end up in situations where their boy will obviously, like one of the main things too is hormonal imbalances and mismanaged estrogen to androgen ratios in itself could give you severe ED. As well as when you throw in Tren or Nandrolone into the mix, you can end up with, even if you have a good sex drive, your dick's like fucking barely functional. That's a very, very realistic outcome that happens with a lot of individuals because they don't know how to manage their fucking drugs. And then above and beyond that, guys that are cycling on and off, and they cycle off, they end up crashing their shit and they end up like borderline hypogonadal for some period of time. And they end up totally asexual essentially. And their girlfriend's wondering, oh, is it me? What's wrong with me? In reality, their boyfriend's just fucking up their hormones, like up and down all over the place. So that's one thing. And then as well, even if their cycle is dialed in, sometimes the heightened sex drive leads to such ridiculously heightened sexual appetite that they go down the porn rabbit hole to a point where they're desensitized to anything that is like quote unquote mainstream normal, and they end up watching like weird fucked up shit to, stimulate their brains again. And that like might end up taking you down the rabbit hole of some of the stuff mentioned in here. Now, if you want to consider that fucked up or not fucked up, like whatever, that's your own personal thing. But ultimately, it's like deviating from what is like his normal is all I'm trying to say. The fact that he's deviating to something that is not what his brain otherwise used to be stimulated by, and now this thing that was otherwise his normal is now no longer satisfactory and he's no longer like even turned on by it, it goes to show that he's probably desensitizing himself in some aspect. I imagine porn's probably in the picture. And then above and beyond that, the progestogenic signaling from a Trenbolone really, really adds fire to the fucking flames. Or not, adds gas to the flames. The fuck am I saying? Adds fire to the flames. So whatever the fucking saying. So anyways, progesterone, an often overlooked hormone that does have significant interplay in sexual preference and appetite. And there has actually been clinical data to reinforce that homosexual activity is higher in individuals that have been exposed to more progesterone. Now, again, does it exactly play out like that where you're just going to take progesterone, you're going to end up becoming gay necessarily? No, but it's been found that men and women whose mothers were treated with progesterone, for example, were significantly less likely to describe themselves as just straight heterosexual, had more, diverse sexual appetites. Individuals that have more progestogenic signaling in general, especially, from like their upbringing, essentially, like if you were born literally exposed to more of this, it's more likely to be impactful of you in some permanent aspect from what I've seen. Again, this is not like a fucking cemented, guaranteed thing, but I can tell you from what the findings I found in the literature, as well as anecdotally through the years of, however many people have, made cycle logs, fucking consultations, like all this shit over the years. Trenbolone, progestogenic signaling, as well as progesterone is also used to enhance libido in guys on TRT, for example. Now, I'm not saying it will. It can actually kind of act like an anti-androgen in some cases at high enough doses, which can have a negative impact on libido. But in a neurological context, it can be a neurosteroid precursor that leads to more synthesis of things like allopregnanolone, which can significantly upregulate, sexual appetite, libido, as well as push your sexual preferences more, away from what is your normalcy. So again, progesterone exposure was found to be related to increased non-heterosexual self-identification, attraction to the same or both sexes, and same-sex sexual behavior is what is found in the literature, or at least strongly suggested. And I do think that when you're using something that is a progestogen, like Trenbolone, you have to keep in mind these compounds are derived from, Trenbolone is derived from Nandrolone, which is a very, very potent, progestogenic compound, as is Trenbolone. And these things, when they agonize the progesterone receptor, think about how much progesterone you naturally produce as a male, and then think about using fucking like 400 to 600 milligrams of Nandrolone, or 200, 300 milligrams of Tren or something. Not only do you have heightened androgenic signaling that's already significantly enhancing your libido, probably pushing you to be more likely to watch a shit ton of porn, but above and beyond that, your progesterone receptors are being agonized way above and beyond what it would be at baseline with endogenous normal progesterone levels. Because again, you're not a fucking like fluctuating female who has significant amounts of progesterone production. You're a male with like very, very low, minuscule amounts of this shit. So you are not really used to progesterone receptor agonism in significant amounts, like above and beyond, not just super physiological, but like way the fuck beyond, like literal compounds designed to stimulate this receptor that otherwise are like barely being fucking tickled by your endogenous secretion. So you can expect when you have this like 1 + 1 = 5 effect of significantly enhanced androgenic signaling, which in itself, regardless of the compound, is probably going to increase your libido. Enhanced, estrogen as well, from your test base, or, perhaps the progestogenic activity upregulating estrogen receptor sensitivity and or aromatase activity via whatever else you're using. The science behind that is a bit more, lackluster, but again, there is significant interplay with progestogenic compounds and estrogenic activity in the body. But above and beyond that, the actual agonism of the progesterone receptor itself with these exotic compounds at dosages far exceeding what you would otherwise be able to fucking tickle the receptors with your natural progesterone production leads to this fucking much more highly likely scenario of the individual exposing themselves to these, ridiculous dosages of these compounds that aren't really supposed to be used in humans. Like, I guess, at a time, they were, of course, Trenbolone was prescribed to women, people who actually needed it for, muscle wasting conditions and whatnot. And Nandrolone is prescribed too, so maybe that's a bit inaccurate to be saying, but in general, like, they're not bioidentical is a more, accurate representation of them. So these things that are operating through not just agonizing the androgen receptor and increasing muscle protein synthesis, but as well agonizing the progesterone receptor very significantly, leads to big changes neurologically that can affect sexual preference. And this is, again, these receptors, think about it like this. Testosterone naturally being produced is what is essentially responsible for building muscle tissue in your body. When you agonize the androgen receptor, obviously there are a bunch of other downstream cascades that lead to, muscle protein, satellite cell proliferation, all these things, myonuclear donation, like all these different concepts that kind of, are things that lead to, actual contractile tissue accrual. But ultimately, the hormone that is regulating a lot of this stuff is the testosterone binding to the androgen receptor and causing gene transcription at the receptor sites. This is an androgen. When you administer anabolic androgenic steroids, they're not bioidentical, but they still bind to the androgen receptor and cause similar actions in terms of muscle protein accrual. So even though these progestogens are not actual bioidentical progesterone, they're still binding and agonizing, stimulating the same receptor through their, chemical structure, the way they're designed, and causing the same kind of downstream actions, but at fucking massively heightened expression levels because of the dosage deployed, the affinity / binding constant / like all these other fucking million factors. And these compounds are highly fucking potent. So I can imagine when you're using, 300, 400 milligrams of Tren, expecting there to be no progesterone activity or progestogenic activity relative to your super benign, innocuous, fucking barely even noticeable endogenous production of progesterone. Obviously there's gonna be a big giant disparity there, and there's gonna be some neurological changes that result from that. Are they permanent necessarily? I would imagine the younger and more plastic your fucking brain is when you expose yourself to this shit, the more likely this stuff will be permanently cemented in your kind of infrastructure neurologically. But again, this stuff is ultimately, I think, what leads to some of this more interesting behavior from a sexual aspect that you will not see as much with things like a straight testosterone perhaps. Now, is it guaranteed that this is gonna happen? Where your sexual appetite, deviates more towards, homosexuality or somewhere in the middle or whatever the fuck? Not necessarily. You might have something else happen. Who the hell knows, or it might do absolutely nothing. Some people, when they use Tren or Deca, they get lower libido. It's not guaranteed to have this happen, but there is definitely a mechanism for it. And I think this is what it is in the individuals that are susceptible / have a likely outcome of this happening. So anyways, that is my explanation of the science. Hopefully you found it interesting. Some insight into Trenbolone that maybe you wouldn't have considered, because a lot of people just think it's some god steroid that makes you recomp and it gives you shitty sleep and it makes you sweat at nighttime and it's bad for blood pressure, rips out your hair, blah, blah, blah. But it also does a lot of other things, increases aggression, it's one of the main things it's known for. But again, a lot of people don't realize some of the interactions it has are totally fucking segregated from the traditional androgen receptor vector. And there is a lot of satellite interaction with other receptors in the body. Trenbolone, again, massive, one of the most potent antagonists of glucocorticoid receptors, and why it's so potent at anti-catabolic activity, why it's so great in a deficit. This is another thing that separates it from other compounds that makes it more unique. There's a lot of shit that often goes overlooked when it comes to this stuff, and ultimately understanding what you're using is what's going to, put you in the best position to mitigate / attenuate, any side effects when they crop up, or just not take the shit to begin with, if you don't want to encounter, the potential outcomes that may come your way when you use it. So anyways, that is the breakdown. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do we have any individuals here that had their sexual preferences significantly altered when they use these compounds? Any and all fucking insight. It's educational, it's interesting, and it's much appreciated. I'm sure a lot of people would want to, where else do you get super niched, responses to these kind of questions? Fucking nowhere, So the comments section is going to be interesting in this one. Let me know what your guys' experiences are like down below. All the comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. Let me know if you have any other explanations for, I could definitely be missing something. I'm just going off the top of my head, to be honest. Let me know what you think, the cause was, or, what kind of interactions may be going on for this, and other individuals who've had similar experiences like him, Big Lenny, stuff like that. All the comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Get high quality oversight from doctors who understand what kind of diagnostics you should be getting and how to interpret them. If you came in asking, a question like this, what kind of doctor is going to know what the fuck to say? That's the kind of stuff we know at my clinic. So anyways, if you want to get high quality care from doctors who understand very, very niched and nuanced information in the realm of pharmacology, performance enhancement, etc., and get a non-judgmental doctor in your camp who is looking out for your best interest and to keep you as safe as possible, regardless of your natural, enhanced, fucking cranked out of your goddamn mind, on HRT, whatever it is, We're non-judgmental, we're turnkey, and we do it all. So check it out in the video description below, as well as Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode pre-workout formulas designed myself from scratch, and my recommended diet model for gaining muscle and sports performance / strength, as well as anything else I'm associated with. It is all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.